The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak on assignment momentarily. Then he'll be joining us as we get going here till a little bit after 9. We are 4 minutes late this morning. That's okay. So we're on time. Game time is on time. You're welcome to join us in the stream. Tell a friend. Subscribe to Hail Varsity YouTube channel. That's where you can catch us every Saturday morning. Give us a follow on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Can watch live on KFOR Facebook and KFOR Twitter. Find Elijah on Twitter at Herbelessence, at Schmidt_radio for me as we get moving. Big weekend this weekend. They're all big, Elijah. You've got an important basketball game for Nebraska today at Maryland. That tips off at 11. You've got an important junior weekend for Big Red football. And, yeah, you have some NFL action with the Chiefs and Ravens, Lions and Niners, and then just kind of set the table for February. That's already next week. Is Nebraska going to continue doing their thing on the recruiting trail as they lead up to spring football? Baseball had their presser yesterday as we're not far away from Will Bolt and company taking the field. Excited about that. But Nebraska basketball on our mind, recruiting kind of front and center. And last night I had a chance to do the Lincoln East Southwest game locally in Lincoln. And first and foremost, anytime those two teams touch gloves, it's a good ball game. It came down to the wire. It was great. And what's really cool is just the energy in that building where it is elbow to elbow. It is packed. It's always packed. And it's just such a great atmosphere, a fantastic Friday night. And guess who was there? It was Garrett McGuire. It was Easy Ed Foley. They were there to check out and spend some time with Jackson Carpenter as they've really been following his career. Tremendous athlete for Southwest, great wide receiver, nice ball player for Southwest basketball. And Carpenter got the visit treatment last night. And, of course, they just all sorts of smiles. And Nebraska, it was cool to watch McGuire and Foley, but just kind of be involved with the crowd, not only the people coming up to them, but they were seeking some folks out too, maybe a relative or somebody's grandparent to go kind of meet and greet and shake hands. I mean, they were the not the main attraction. Of course, the players on the court were the main attraction, but Nebraska doing work in state, and we kind of highlighted that earlier this week on the Average Joe Pod. We welcome in Mark Kraynak, a.k.a. your business's MVP.
That's why I was late, actually. I'm trying to come up with different stuff every week.
You were closing the deal.
I was trying to come up with something, you know. I was just
love that. I love that.
Kind of put this inadvertent pressure on myself to come up with a new thing every week now. So, you know.
They're pretty good.
Late, well,
they're always fantastic.
I'm just imagining Mark at
traveling journalist, sometimes journalist.
How about Mark, though, just sitting at his computer screen at 7:40 in the morning, knowing we're about to start and going, ooh, I have to have a better one than last week, though.
Writer's block. I know. Get writer's block. But the reason for today's AKA Your Business's MVP, let's talk about how we can grow your business out there, folks, okay?
And first a word by Mark Kraynak. Not recruiting, not basketball. First a word from Mark Kraynak.
Right. Well, I sure love insert company here. Wow. They have really changed everything. Imagine that. Imagine like that could have been your company. You know, I just wonder if there's certain coffee companies that are out there watching, you know. I wonder if they're out there watching.
This is a takeoff on Wayne's World where there is a whole 8 minutes of the film dedicated to product placement.
Boy, this would rotate a lot less. This would rotate a lot less if for the right price.
They got the white cups up in Omaha, though?
What's that? Yeah, well, I'd love to talk to you more about it, but
Great point.
Do you also have that? Oh my God.
This
Mallory Maddox, are you listening? Are you watching? That's the CMO. No, she just got a promotion like CSO or something, like
look at
strategy officer.
Business Insider.
Because they got the new CEO that's like, all right, we're going to make all black coffee no matter what size, $1. Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
Appreciate you,
Yeah,
man.
that was a good move.
Good move for you. And another good move for you would be buying advertising through Hail Varsity Radio. And if you're not paying attention, we're not going to drop if you're not paying attention via the live video stream, we're not going to drop the company name for you. So if you're listening podcast form and you're confused, you're going to have to check out the video.
Let's just say it rhymes with Hooters. And it's coffee. Let's just say that.
Well, you absolutely ruined my plug for the video. I was going to get people over to the YouTube channel and bump up our numbers there, but no longer.
Well done with the word association, Kraynak. If it's going to make anyone drive traffic to the video, you say that word.
Hooters.
Well, that was the plan.
If you combine Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak, and Hooters, people are going to run.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Not ours.
They'd all put in their 2 weeks. All the employees.
Not ours. Let's get to roll call this morning. Who's in the stream early with us? And Brandon beat us all here. Brandon, kudos to you. Patrick checks in second. Eric in third. Drunk Monk in at 4. Moonbot 5. And we always shout out a few off the bench. Tuck is at 6. Dion 7. And no way am I saying Tuck and Dion are you bench folks. I'm saying if we're in that 5 to 7 man rotation a la basketball season, where we go. We need the football season. We just got to do our starting 11, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And then, I don't want Tuck and Dion to just be all of a sudden be surprised about their role today.
Right.
Off the bench. Right.
Tuck, you are to rebound and defend. Dion, I need you to hit threes a la Wiltshire style. Steven Nichols also checking in. So appreciate you, all of you,
and remember,
for
guys,
finding us this morning.
This is similar to CJ Wiltshire, his role with the Husker basketball. It's not about being the first on the floor. You're going to be the last on the floor. Does that coach trust you? Do we, the coaches, trust you in the last 5 minutes of a game? If you're out there, it means a hell of a lot more, I'd argue, than the first 5 minutes. So that's something to note. If you're not in the starting 5, you can be that key player off the bench that earns those minutes down the stretch.
Steven disputes when he was tagged. It was in here first, but the link wasn't up yet. Probably not. It's okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We can't verify that, Steven. Sorry.
I will take your word at it though. So let's talk a little bit here. We had fun this week, kind of following the Harbaugh story with Nebraska and where their pecking order is in the Big Ten, and you've got this seat at the top held by Michigan. They just won a national championship. They're going through some transition, and who's poised to either keep that power? Michigan, who's poised to kind of sit on the throne now, not Elvis style, mind you, but Ohio State seems to be sliding in, or at least they're doing everything in their power. This is their window. They've always kind of been in the on-deck circle. They've not been able to topple Michigan the last 3 years. But what was interesting about Michigan was the 9-year kind of saga of Harbaugh, right? The trajectory of where Michigan was. He came in, they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, and that's compete for the Big Ten title, but they did in short order. Then they kind of fell off, especially that COVID year. And he revamped, he retooled, and he went from running a spread to this 3 tight end, incredible offensive and defensive line priority. And then they just mashed people. They had play action. They had great skill, but they were great on the lines of scrimmage. He kind of got back to old school football, and that's how he got down. I want to kind of liken Nebraska's trajectory right now, just under year one of Matt Rule. And, Michigan was a bit of a roller coaster till he stabilized with recruiting and less attrition. He had a really good class in 2021. He had a really good class in 2020, and he had some famous, flashy, living room, shirtless wrestling 5-star gets early in his career. And those are some of the same kids. Yeah, they're in the NFL. Yeah, they have a role, but they're also some kids who opted out of bowl games, right? Because his bowl record was horrible till this year. So I just kind of look and I'm trying to kind of compare where Michigan's at and where Nebraska can go. Title, yes, it'd be great, but I'm just saying climbing up the ladder from where Michigan was at. I mean, Sparty was beating them before Harbaugh got there. I mean, they were a mess under Hoke, despite all of that rich blood talent they were able to get. So Nebraska's trajectory right now, and the one thing that Harbaugh shifted with the lines of scrimmage mentality, but he was his quarterback. He also got the quarterback right eventually. First with McNamara to a title, a guy that can manage and make some plays, and then he shifted like he did in the NFL, shifted to get a guy like McCarthy that made a lot of plays, was mobile enough, but was just a smart, talented guy and didn't have to be the guy but could make some plays. So, Nebraska's got a chance to get that quarterback right in year 2 and beyond here with Matt Rule. They've got a quarterback's coach. They are prioritizing lines of scrimmage. When you look at some of the recruiting targets they have on the offensive and defensive line, man, it's something you can smile about if you're a Nebraska fan. It just has to happen on the field. But the plan seems pretty sound.
Well, I do wonder, though, Chris, and I agree with you 100%. I want to make that clear that it appears, although we are pretty optimistic, I think, in general, as Husker fans, we're resilient, right? We've been through a lot. It's it's always, this year's probably 9 wins, probably 9. This looks like 9. I could see 9. That's where I'm at. Where you at?
Talk myself into 10, 11, right? I mean, that's where your mind can go.
You look at it, and despite the past decade, you say, I think they could go undefeated until October.
I mean, easily. Yeah, they might lose to Ohio State, but other than that, schedule, everything looks winnable. So what I wonder about, let's go back to, we could go back to Callahan, we could go back to Bo, we go back to Riley, go back to Frost. We were obviously missing some things. With Bo, maybe not. We weren't missing as much. I think it was just pretty obvious. It's like, Bo, stay out of your own way so you don't make your job harder on yourself than it needs to be. Like, maybe don't cuss out the fans. You might get a little more support if you do that. Maybe get a little depth. Let's not move 260-pound Cam Meredith down to defensive tackle against Wisconsin and expect to stop anybody.
They had to
get a little more depth.
But yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why you should have offered Harrison Phillips and the like. Just because he wasn't sued doesn't mean you don't offer him a scholarship. Just come on, right? Just stuff like that.
That's still stuck in your craw, and I love you for it.
But I'm just saying, right? Like, just don't make things harder on yourself than it needs to be. The reason I'm bringing this up is, like, what are we missing? Right? Like, at this point, I think we need to be a little more clear-eyed. With Callahan. We were probably missing his blind spot of, I don't know, the way or his loyalty to Cosgrove or the culture they were creating, right? With Bo, we just went over it. With Riley, it was, wow, he's not actually running this program. It's this combination of Eichhorst and, Billy Devaney, and it was just a train wreck from that standpoint. With Frost, it was maybe a little too much golden tea and not enough details, right? Like, we were missing some things that were pretty fundamental to what was going on. And I'm just wondering if we have a blind spot, a similar blind spot for Rule, because all indications that I can see really are pointing up and to the right. Kind of like your business's revenue will grow if you contact us today. But seriously, like, all indicators are saying things are on the right track. Things are going well. You can expect improvement. What are we missing, though?
I think an important component of this conversation, as we welcome Brandon Vogel in here, counterread.com, is what is the expectation whenever you're talking about what is this team missing.
9 wins.
Because
9 wins, period.
Because
That's this program.
I fully believe if you set the expectation as making a bowl game, Nebraska has what they need to go and do that now. I believe despite the quarterback, the putrid performance of the quarterbacks last year, I think we're going to safely call it that, Nebraska still had enough pieces last year with that defense to go and at least make a bowl game last season. I think that's evidenced by how close they actually were. All the one-score losses late in the season, the 3 different opportunities that you should have had it. I think they had it last year. I think they have it moving forward. We'll get to Ross in just a second. But if you're talking 9, or if you're talking a championship game appearance, I think that conversation is a little different. I think Nebraska is missing some things. I look at the offensive line in particular. Look at the running back room. Unsure with that right now, and we'll have to wait and see how spring football looks like, I guess. But I think the conversation changes depending on what your expectations are and what you mean by what are you missing in terms of what type of season you're talking about.
Ross in the comments says Michigan also cheated their balls off. Just
Allegedly.
FYI, everybody.
Allegedly.
Not bad. Hey,
some call it cheating, some call it outworking Brandon Vogel.
Brandon Vogel does join us, as mentioned by Elijah. And Tuck chimes in with, I think Matt Rule asked the question, what are we missing constantly? Fair point. Brandon, if we are to look at where Nebraska is at under Rule and where they are going, and what we just talked about with each of the coaches that have failed to achieve both certainly achieved the 9-win thing. That's neither here nor there. But if you consider yourself a 9-win program, and that's the standard, that's the minimum standard, that's sort of the baseline expectation, I think, for most fans. It's around 9 wins. Baseline. Could be wrong on that, but I think that's still, Tom established that, Frank continued it, Bo hit there. That's, I think, how fans, right or wrong, kind of view the program. Can you think of anything, if you had to pick something, that Nebraska might be missing or that we might be missing right now that could prevent Nebraska from being that?
No, which alarms me a little bit, because if you'd asked me the same question at the stage of any of the recent coaches after their first season, I don't know if I would have had one. The one with Rule, and it's not missing something, I think it's just an unknown, is I don't know if we know what the ceiling is for a Rule program, because, well, after the Illinois game, he mentioned specifically, Pat Riley and the innocent climb of teams as they try to get better. And it's not that that's easy by any means. I mean, we've seen the last two people at Nebraska kind of not be able to do it. But it's a different skill set than being, I guess what I'm trying to say is, at the point that he got Baylor to the top of the Big 12, he chose to go to the NFL, which is his right to do. Absolutely. At the point that he got Temple to back-to-back conference titles, he progressed up the ladder and went to Baylor. So I think at Nebraska, it's weird to look back at the Pelini years, because I think most people would agree with you, Mark, that's like what Pelini did is kind of what everybody says they'd be happy with right now. Right. And the comparison we always used in the past was like, maybe Nebraska is not a national title contender the way they were under Osborne, Devaney. Games changed a lot since then. But at that point, the better comparison to me, what Bo Pelini had Nebraska to, and this might fall on people's ears a little harshly, but close coaching contemporary of his, Nebraska was kind of Kentucky at that point. Mark Stoops, Kentucky now. And as we look at these bigger conferences, the Power 2 and the SEC and the Big 10, is Nebraska, if Nebraska is Kentucky, are people content with that? Because I think Rule will have the opportunity to jump up, when things kind of align. It's just I don't see Nebraska consistently being a program that's going to recruit top 4 or 5 teams in an 18-team Big 10.
Can they develop, right? That's where you may not get the ready-made. You may not always go get a Raiola. That's kind of cool to say if you're a Nebraska fan.
Although there is another one waiting in the wings.
Sure,
So,
but
you actually might.
But can you find a guy who's the kid who ended up going to Ohio State? The kid out of Texas, defensive lineman.
I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head.
Sure, but they were in
Carlon Jones.
Yeah, Carlon Jones went from really good ball player out of Texas. Nebraska was first in on him, and everyone else was like, "Oh, damn," And Nebraska 12th hour loses him to Ohio State. That's where keep those guys that you discover early, but I think that's where Nebraska can be better than everybody else. They can be right. We think we know that they can develop, but the Hassan Reddicks of the world, that glaring example that's ripping off double-digit sack numbers for you from Temple, from Rule. No, I think that's your kind of differentiator for Nebraska is, being able to go get some of your ready-made dudes and make sure they do well and then get the word out. And then also go find your gems, develop, and have the best of both worlds, right? I mean, that's what worked for Saban. He got the best talent, but he also, a 3-star at Alabama was pretty damn good too. And you just kind of reload and develop, and guys are ready when they're there. That, Vogues, the way you put things there, man, with Nebraska's ceiling, that was awesome. And what I'd like to know is, with Nebraska, say Nebraska gets back to being Nebraska, where there's consistency, there's big wins at home, and as good as Nebraska's been with Osborne, with Devaney, it felt like it towards the end of their tenures, but Nebraska wasn't always a great road team. They're not going on the road and beating a top 5 team. It just didn't happen. It's hard for teams to do that even back during their era. But can Nebraska get to the mountaintop, and then can you stay, right? Because we saw Rule climb up to Temple, and we saw him climb up at Baylor like you laid out, and then it's on to the NFL. So can you, where are you at? Where's your zip code at in this Big Ten once you kind of get out of that 6-6, 5-7 realm as you make your climb? Where's your place in the Big Ten right now? Because you're top 4, top 5, you're a playoff discussion point.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where Nebraska, if things go well, that's probably where it should live. Where you're not, I did a thing on just yesterday looking at the national title odds, not because we're talking national title or anything, but just to see, because it's kind of a pecking order in the Big Ten, and Nebraska had the 8th best odds, tied with Iowa and UCLA coming in. So that kind of gives you an idea of where Vegas views them right now, and I think that's a good starting point for a year 2 under Matt Rule. From there, can you progress to consistently being 5-6, like that team that's 5-6 right now? Well, it's Penn State is, So, I mean, that seems like still another big step away, but I do think Nebraska could get there. You mentioned a lot of good points, Schmidt, there that had me thinking. Nebraska has to be a development program. And I think the difference is when you have the high-end talent. So even somebody like Saban, you can be a good developer. And I would say Georgia is too. That's what makes them near unstoppable in a real context of today's college football. But you're going to have, so when we look at the peer development programs in Iowa, a Kentucky, a Wisconsin for the most part, those teams do have the kind of their swoons. Even though they're very good at developing, it's mostly a thing of timing. Like if you have a small recruiting class or you get hit with a slate of injuries, you might be bringing along that next wave and they might be on pace, ahead of pace. but it still just becomes kind of a timing thing where, Kentucky bounces along at 8-9 wins, and then it drops, it has a 5-7 or a 6-6. And we've seen the same thing happen at Iowa. And that's just the difference that I don't know if you can coach your way around just having a little bit more talent that can paper over some of those lean years. So that's kind of, I think, where Nebraska's at. I think that's completely fair. And I think Matt Rule is a coach that wants to do it that way. Part of the reason I don't know if we know what his ceiling is timing. He progressed very quickly, and that kind of precluded that. I mean, we saw Baylor had a pretty long tail after he left in terms of being pretty good, which indicates that team was built to win for a little bit had he stayed. But Nick Saban lost all 4 games in November his first year, 2007 Alabama. So if we want to just go that way, we can say that's where Nebraska's headed.
Yeah. Well, let's say that then. That's beautiful. Brandon, you have studied attrition extensively, more so than anybody I've ever read, and really landed on, I am paraphrasing here, you will know this better, but just to kind of get into the question a little bit. But Nebraska essentially suffered greater attrition numbers in terms of just keeping players on the roster that you had recruited at a really alarming clip. More so than most programs in the country, anywhere from, I want to say it was north of 35% if you average it out over a fair amount of time. That's over a third of your players are transitioning out. And I think under Frost, it probably even got worse. And that was before the transfer portal era had really taken hold. That was before NIL. Now, with those things where everybody is suffering a little bit more attrition, it seems like Matt Rule is actually stemming that tide against kind of the grain. Are you seeing it that same way where despite everything saying that your attrition is probably going to be worse, it seems like Matt's actually making it better for Nebraska right now. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. So, to set kind of the baseline, during the Big 10 years pre-transfer portal, Nebraska lost 40% of its
40
every scholarship class. Wow. Like it was just that's what it was going to be, and it wasn't drastically higher, I would say. So I looked at kind of the similar Big 10 programs. And the average there was like 33, 34. So Nebraska was about 6 or 7 points higher. But, that adds up over a period. And I think it was, Nebraska has to be a national recruiter. And I looked at all of these factors, like when did players sign? How far away did they have to travel to play at Lincoln? And, the farther away you get from Lincoln, those guys transfer at an increased rate. It just makes sense. Like if you're from Miami, Lincoln's a lot different. It's a lot easier to get homesick. So I would guess, and it's still so early that, the numbers kind of haven't settled themselves out. I would guess most teams are going to average probably closer to 50 in the transfer portal era. I mean, it's you remove that restrictor, which, in my personal opinion is good and probably should have been the case in college football for a long time, but that's what it's going to be. And so far for Matt Rule to do that, and I'm forgetting what is, I mean, well, it's really been too early to have a meaningful attrition rate in either of his recruiting classes. But just the number of guys that were on the roster when he arrived that didn't depart, I think tells you he had a pretty good message. And then we've seen it again. So we've had two December transfer windows with him now, where Nebraska's lost some guys, who, were contributors. Ernest Hausman is easily the biggest one in terms of like pure talent. And that seemed just like one of those where new guys showed up and circumstances were such that Ernest had a lot of opportunities. What are you going to do? But yeah, I think so far, and that's, we talk about what are we missing here in terms of, potential pratfalls or weaknesses. that might be something where it's just too early to tell. That's a potential strength. Like if a team that can consistently hold on to the players it hand selects as high school players or even as transfers with multiple years, it probably has a pretty big advantage going forward.
Brandon, to move from hypothetical to reality, as you look at spring football this year with attrition, there's going to be some attrition. That's expected with what your roster number looks like right now. Where should Husker fans expect to see attrition here this spring? What areas of the field do you see that competition factor guys are going to understand there's not going to be an easy path to the field and they're probably going to have to hit the portal if they want to get some playing time? Well, where do you see that as you forecast spring football right now?
Yeah, I'm guessing, well, just based on numbers, I would look towards the secondary / back seven. I mean, and this is part of their recruiting plan. Like they'll bring these guys in that are athletes or might be listed as wide receiver or might be listed as DB and end up playing wide receiver. They're like, well, we'll figure it out. And that's good and that's intriguing. And I think, long term, when you add up profits and losses there, you can come out ahead, but there are going to be some losses just as you're trying to figure that all out. I forget how many DBs. Like DBs are by far, in terms of the numbers listed on the roster, they've got a ton of them. So I would expect there to be some sorting there. I would expect there to be some departures there from players who are maybe caught in a little bit of a middle ground of like they're not veterans who have experienced, but they've been on campus a couple of years because they brought in, a slew of guys. The competition level is just really high there. Quarterback, I don't know if I would expect attrition there other than you should always like put a little, you might lose a quarterback off to the side. That would obviously be a big one because Nebraska only has 3 right now. Running back would be one too, with a couple of guys coming off of injury in particular, to see what happens there. But for the most part, I don't expect a ton on offense because there's a lot of opportunity on offense to make your case and get on the field right now.
Did you guys see what Dan Lanning had told the Ryan Russillo show? I'm sharing it right now here. If you're watching in the stream, don't know if you can see that, but tell me how familiar this looks, by the way. He says, I think at the end of the day, the Big Ten is going to have to prepare for us and what we do differently in the league. What's up with these Oregon guys, man?
That's famous last words there, right?
You're not allowed to say that. And then you then you went into the schedule and thinking that, schedule's,
there's some winnable games there, Mark. I mean, look at the schedule.
They got Ohio State. They got to go to Michigan. They got to go to Wisconsin. Wow. When are they going to learn? But as somebody, Brandon, who studies the sport of college football as much or more than anybody, when you look at Oregon and you look at how they translate and how they're constructed, do you look at them as, no, they actually might be a pretty good outlier that could withstand a Big Ten schedule? Or do you look at it more like, nope, you're going to take some lumps because of just the unfamiliarity and the general trench warfare nature of the Big Ten?
Yeah, they're the team that I'm probably of the 4 newcomers that I'm the least worried about the transition to the Big Ten. In 2 seasons under Lanning, he spent time as a GA at Alabama. He was an assistant at Georgia. Like they're kind of built like an SEC team to a degree we haven't seen at Oregon. They're really physical, and they return a ton this year. They're basically the 2nd pick in the Big Ten right now behind Ohio State, which is kind of loaded for bear. Even more so than Ohio State. Ohio State is every year. Yes, that's a hair-raising echo from the Frost era for all of us. I kind of buy it a little bit from Lanning. He's pretty well. He's extremely competent. He's 18-8 against the spread in 2 years at Oregon, which is a number I look at not for any betting purposes, but just because I'm like, are you exceeding expectations? And he has. I mean, we look at it. The team that beat him twice this year, Washington was kind of more classically Pac-12. So I think they'll be okay, particularly in year one with this transition to the Big Ten.
Brendan Vogel's with us, counterread.com. We're talking Nebraska, their trajectory, and the new look Big Ten. Also, something Elijah touched on, going from that hypothetical to reality. Vogue's going to switch off to some Nebraska basketball. Big 4-game stretch, one at a time for Fred and company for sure. But they're off to Maryland today. Wisconsin looms Thursday. Top 10 Illinois next week. And then Northwestern, who's a pain in the neck, especially in their gym. Right now, Nebraska on the right side of the bubble. You look at most projections. What do you believe about this basketball team that Fred has?
I mean, they're a well-constructed team. They when they have a little bit of an edge, we've seen them be pretty good. And I wouldn't call them like a front-running team. Well, I mean, we've just seen it in the home road split. In that you get that home crowd behind you, and they don't have some of the lapses and lulls that we've seen on the road. Today, with those 4 games that you just mentioned, the start of that today is essential. Maryland, I would view as pretty equivalent from a like pure ability / power perspective as Nebraska. You got to go to their place and win a game, because then, like you said, you've got two teams that are top 10 or top 12 in KenPom in Illinois and Wisconsin back to back, and then a tough road trip to Northwestern. Nebraska's on the right side of the bubble right now. You can't come out of this stretch 0-4, and it's not a given. I think based on what we've seen from Nebraska so far, that I guess put it this way, I'm not penciling in any guaranteed wins out of that. Nebraska's going to have to go out and do it.
Fair to say, though, Brandon, in your opinion, that in the next 4, I don't think Nebraska could get bumped off of the bubble into an NIT type berth, but in the next 4, they could lock up a potential NCAA tournament berth. Is that a fair statement over the next 4, or am I underplaying the impact of losing all 4?
I think if they lost all 4, you'd be pretty nervous at that point. I mean, there's still plenty of season left after that, plus a conference tournament. But if we look at, if we check bracketology today and we checked it after a 4-game losing streak, I suspect they'd probably be on the outside. That said, in terms of locking it up, I don't know if that's totally on the table either. If you were to go, 3-1, you get this one against Maryland, you get a tough road win at Northwestern, and you knock off one of Wisconsin or Illinois. Yeah, then you're moving up the list rather than down, which is fairly obvious. I don't know if it would guarantee they're in, but you add another top 10 win to their resume, and 2 others on top of that. And Nebraska's sitting in a pretty good spot.
Yep. And looking at Nebraska's next 4, it's at Maryland today at 11. Then you're home with Wisconsin, at Illinois, then at Northwestern. And you don't see any gimmies there, really. I mean, at any point. But if it's an 0-4, certainly possible. It's kind of over at that point, right? Don't you think, in terms of the bubble? If you're 2-2, you're still in the conversation, kind of feels like.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know. 0-4 would be real tough. And I don't think that will happen. Nebraska has shown enough to think that they'll be in some of these, but for the most part, I mean, minus Wisconsin and Illinois, where both opponents will be favored by a decent amount. The other 2 are kind of coin flips in my mind. So Nebraska should be able to come out of this, I think, with their tournament hopes still alive. It's just a matter of are they trending negatively or trending positively.
Bogues, I want to throw an NFL question at you before we leave. What do you believe about Belichick and the job market? I mean, I'm fascinated by some of the narrative out there. You know, the game has passed him by. He wants too much control. You look at it, okay, the job to get Harbaugh got. When you look at, yeah, they're aging, but there's also that young quarterback with Herbert, and that's really a good spot. You've seen some of the hires in the coaching carousel with the NFL, and do you think he's out there? And I was just Rex Ryan throughout the fact, all right, if you're the Bills, do you go get Belichick? Do you move on from McDermott? If you're Dallas and Jerry, do you let Bill kind of sit out there, and if it's another repeat with McCarthy, do you bring him in? I don't, there's thoughts that Andy Reid might hang it up after this season, whenever that season ends. Could be tomorrow. You bring Bill in because the locker room wants the enemy back if Andy Reid moves on. So I'm just kind of fascinated to get your take as you look at the Belichick personality, the track record. I mean, he wants to go match Brady for Super Bowls. That said, he is a different guy with his track record of, fifth round and beyond draft picks the last 5 to 7 years compared to his first 15.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the issue. To take us back to development programs, that's kind of what Belichick was in the NFL. With his ability to identify talent, some pretty bold strategy when it came to free agency, the draft in particular, and the key thing about this, and we see this at all levels of football, i.e. Jimbo Fisher, Jameis Winston at Florida State. When a guy has a singular quarterback, if you do it right, you can be really, really good. And in the NFL, where that quarterback doesn't graduate, well, that's what we saw essentially in New England. You had a quarterback it was done. You had one of the greatest of all time. That's great. And then when you add the development pieces around it and a good football mind, I mean, Belichick is fanatical about the sport. So it gets interesting when you look at one of those teams that's kind of already there in like a Dallas or a Buffalo. Would Belichick be the difference, or does he need more time than that? I don't know. I don't follow, honestly, the NFL closely enough to know what players felt about Belichick in terms of coming into the locker room oh yeah, we really wanted to play for this guy. I mean, he's very we know his demeanor. Harbaugh is that. That's kind of what I think the book on Harbaugh was as an NFL coach. And then with what we've seen, we saw it at all of his stops. He's kind of the guy. He comes in and he gets people together. And the amazing thing about him is he's been able to do it at both the college and the NFL levels, which is a much different challenge. I don't know if Belichick's that guy. So it does kind of make him an odd fit for a league where the trend is obviously to kind of younger head coaches, unless you're really well established.
All right, Brandon, we'll get you out on this. Gary Sharp standing by in the green room. In 2 weeks, who are we going to be talking about playing in the Super Bowl? We'll burn the tape if you're wrong. It's no pressure.
I don't. Other than I think the Chiefs are gonna. I think the Chiefs are gonna make it. The Harbaugh narrative ends here. The Harbaugh family narrative ends here. NFC. I honestly don't have a lead. So I'll lock in one.
Tell me about Counterread. Counterread.com. What goodness you're putting out each week?
Yeah, so some twice weekly newsletter from myself and Aaron Sorensen. Do a couple of free things each week. A lot of the things that we talk about on this show each week is kind of the weird stuff I get up to over there: attrition rate, national title odds and what they can tell us about the Big Ten right now. We'll start getting some initial power rankings, which as a nerd, I'm very excited about because once we have power rankings, then we can take those, we can come up with point spreads, which we can translate to implied win probabilities. We can start setting win totals for any team in the country that we want to, and then we'll really have some stuff to talk about. Where do you think Nebraska's win total starts 2024?
7.
Yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would say.
I think 7. From those national title odds, Nebraska does get to play Rutgers, Purdue, Indiana. Those are 3 of the lowest 4.
There's 3 of the 7.
Okay.
UTEP's going down. That's 4.
You say 7.
Yep.
you say 7. I feel like
Northern Iowa.
There's always inflated lines. Can we talk about that? There's always inflated lines for Nebraska. So you guys say 7, so 7 probably means 8 because Vegas knows they'll make money off of Husker fans, right?
I mean, I do think this certainly was the case in the past. I do think Nebraska is still a quote unquote public team, and that they know they'll get a good handle on most Nebraska prop bets. So yeah, it just depends on. Then it becomes a matter of odds. Do you want to put it at 7 and have plus money on the over? You want to put it at 8 and have plus money on the under? It's a moving target.
Yep. Love it. Vogue, you take care and appreciate you jumping in this morning.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There he is. Vogue's from his football abode. We say hi to Gary Sharp, the Iron Horse. He's full mast.
Good morning.
This morning. Yep. Mark, of course, your business's MVP. That's Elijah Herbel.
Gary,
Chris Schmidt.
Does the name Full Mast, is that referencing Rink Mast, or did you just watch the Sydney Sweeney Hot Ones video?
Ooh, that's a good question. And you're going to have to probably explain to most of the audience who that is. No, I was fully masked after 34 points the other night at PBA.
Did you notice that nothing even hit the rim with his performance, right? Like it was...
Right. He was good. He needed, he hadn't played well the previous 2 games, and of course the Rutgers game. And Ohio State didn't have an answer for him, and he hit shots. He got on a heater, and that was one of the games where you thought, man, this might be a tension convention. It's going to be a tight game. The line was only about 2.5. That was easy breezy for Nebraska. Once the second half started, and Ohio State said, "Nah, we're not here to fight." That was a pretty easy one. But you guys know how the pendulum of Nebraska basketball goes. Today becomes like a bigger game, like the game of the year on the road at Maryland.
They got Jameer Young, the Maryland's guard, sort of your classic guard. I mean, penetrate, dish, shoot, creative off the dribble. Who guards him today? Lawrence? Put Lawrence on him? Williams?
I would say more Bryce Williams because, by the way, Williams and Young played together at Charlotte.
Ah, okay.
So there's a little back history there. I don't know. They'll probably do a lot of different things, but I think Williams will get the initial go at it. This is a game that, man, you got excited about the other night at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Now, what do you do today? I mean, you got this stretch of Illinois and Northwestern still on the road. You got the huge game on Thursday. I just want to see Nebraska stick to their identity. Sometimes they get on the road and their shooting splits are way different when they get on the road. Is they get out of their identity. They all of a sudden start to run with teams, and that's not their identity. So I'll be curious to see what the tempo is like today. But I think it'll be a tight, very physical basketball game, and they're going to need a lot of rink mast, and they're going to need Casey to show up again today to get out of it, to get out of the rut he was in the other night, where he got in foul trouble and then kind of, maybe got in his feelings and wasn't as crisp as he was against Northwestern. They'll need a big effort out of him today.
Sharpie, we're talking some Nebraska football trajectory of the program, and there's excitement about the direction, and you look at Nebraska, and the part of that excitement here for spring is Dylan Raiola, and the feel that not only Nebraska has option A with him, but B, there's Danny Kalen, a local talent. They're bringing in a couple of quarterbacks for 25-26 this weekend for Junior Day. But I want to get to the topic, your take on getting quarterback right at Nebraska. Well, just what that does, and we kind of referenced it earlier last hour to Harbaugh when he got his quarterback in. Yeah. It really was. It's obvious that it was a compliment to everything else he'd built on the lines of scrimmage.
I think this is a deep conversation because I think when you say did they get their quarterback right? Well, did they get the guy that's calling plays with him right? They've got to they got to be in tight with each other and understand each other where they'll call plays for his strengths. And that's why, I think spring is big because I think once we get through spring, we're going to have a better understanding of what Nebraska wants to do offensively, because Rule has been really, really stingent on this on his entire career as he plays to the strength of his quarterback. Like, he doesn't all of a sudden have this wide open offense and a quarterback that can't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. So I'll be curious to see what there. But once you get that quarterback fixed, then it becomes don't let him always wear the cape. What do you do with the other 10 guys around him? And then I think another part of what you guys are talking about and what Schmidt, you're alluding to is you can't stop. Like, you have a window to go find the next Dylan Raiola. And your job as the head coach is to construct the roster and to continue to better the roster. And if you happen to get a 4-star quarterback in the class of 2025, have at it, because that's your job. Is don't worry about numbers, create competition, and always coach yourself and recruit yourself into options.
Gary Sharp with us on the Hail Varsity Weekend Edition, brought to you by Cornhead Lager. Could also be brought to you by another business. You just let us know.
Subtle.
Yeah, trying to be. Let's talk about that. Gary, you don't happen to have a side business, do you? Because let's talk if you do. Let's talk.
Well, and Kraynak, there's an offering plate behind you. I mean, you need to come next Saturday with the offering plate.
Por qué no?
No, just hold up one of those little signs, like a little piece of paper.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We'll talk for money.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
I was going to say hungry, anything helps.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
Yeah,
dude, let me just make quick commentary on everybody we see that is holding that sign up that needs a little help. And at times we've rolled our window down and handed somebody a couple of bucks. But do you do a double take when the guy is wearing Air Jordans? Just ask in the room.
Maybe somebody handed him that out the window and they happen to be the right size.
Or they take away from the people that really need help, and that person that has the Air Jordans 3 hours later is at a different location, and you wonder, how did he get all the way across town in that short amount of time? Yeah.
All right. So
he drove in his Audi.
As we look ahead to this year and beyond for Nebraska, Dylan Raiola's job to lose. Obviously, we know that, but let's also realize that we're talking about Nebraska is turning it over to a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of rare for any team, let alone Nebraska. Game one,
but it does happen in college football.
It does, but it's kind of rare.
Nebraska did it in Frost's first year.
Yep. No, you're right. So it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think we're in for this year with what you know about Raiola, what you know about Rule, what you know about the schedule? What kind of ups and downs can we expect? Is it sort of the typical true freshman type things, like he's going to face some things he's not used to seeing and have some horrific games? Do you think maybe his floor is just better than that based on who he is, to where maybe he doesn't? Like, what are we in for with a true freshman, can't miss, 5-star quarterback? Maybe Nebraska's, one of the higher ranked guys they've ever landed at the program.
A guy that is driven to be an NFL guy that's going to take people along with him. I want to see him make people better around him. I think he's going to be really good. And I want him to struggle as a freshman. I do. I want him to make sure that in March he's out in the elements, throwing in the wind, throwing in the cold, because he hasn't played in the wind or the cold like we have here when we get to October and November. So I hope they get him outside a lot, working with his wide receivers, just to get used to those conditions. So when you get to October 26th in Columbus, it doesn't hit you right in the face. I think we're going to find out that he has got an enormous amount of skill, that he plays quarterback like his dad did as an offensive lineman with that mentality. But he's going to learn along the way, and we're going to see how quickly he adapts, because he's going to try and make that big boy throw, where in high school you could make the throw outside the numbers and you don't have to worry about the speed of a defensive back, closing in, because they're not as good in high school as he's going to envision, he's going to have here in college. So I hope there's bouts of adversity, because that's where we'll find out the most about Dylan, is how he handles those. And maybe he does it. Maybe he's just this unbelievable quarterback that is the real deal and will bless the ground that he walks on for 3 years. But I hope he struggles a little bit, because I want to see how he adapts and how he adjusts. But there's a lot of things to like that we haven't had around here in a while. Nebraska hasn't had a quarterback that is a brand. That's what Nebraska has. They have a quarterback that is a brand, that the goal is to get him into the NFL in 3 years.
And his brother waiting in the wings. Is it as simple as that's Nebraska's next quarterback? He's 26, class of 26, I believe.
I think there's a possibility. You got to remember that the family loves Nebraska. Mom and dad feel like, man, Nebraska has done a lot for him. Now, they're not moving to Nebraska. They're going to stay in Buford, Georgia. So, who knows? I mean, we'll see. He's got
to go win the job at Buford.
Right? Yeah, he's a young kid. I think Nebraska started a nice relationship, but the family is a big thing. If the family loves their experience with Dylan, then, Dayton has got a decision to make. But whoever it is, like we were just saying, Nebraska needs to continue to recruit 25, 26, keep adding quarterbacks, and let it play out. Look what Ohio State did. Ohio State's got all these 5 stars, and they're like, hey, let's just have some competition. We know we're going to lose somebody, but let's have competition to make that person better or the number one guy better.
Gary, we have a thought in here from Eric I want to get your thoughts on. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. He asks, it's more of a statement. Need to be able to take it off of Raiola's shoulders until he's ready to take it. I agree with that, but I want to get your thoughts on what that looks like to you in the season 2024. Once we get to fall, what does it look like to take it off his shoulders till he's ready to take it?
I don't think you walk in and say, "Hey, Dylan, welcome to Nebraska. Hand the ball off 45 times."
He ain't going to be a game man.
Yeah, he's a guy that'll read the field. I mean, his mannerisms are like his idol, Patrick Mahomes. I think he scans the field. I think he throws wide receivers open. I think he's going to make guys better. That's the thing. He's going to make wide receivers that we thought, all of a sudden they're going to look better because there's a deep ball and they're better at tracking and all of those kind of things. But there's a lot to like there, guys. There's enough to start with. I mean, probably walking in the door, he's more polished than we've had a quarterback in a long time. I mean, just the mechanics of being a quarterback, because he's essentially been a quarterback for a long time before he gets to college. So all of the mechanics, the footwork, the vision, the reading defenses, knowing what the other 10 guys on the field are doing, that is way ahead of a lot of freshmen that we encounter at that position at Nebraska. But also, Nebraska finally got a quarterback that is playing quarterback, not an athlete that we're going to adapt to playing quarterback.
Yeah.
Sharpie, I want to go back to an earlier thought on quarterback here and that pairing that you're absolutely right about here. And let's talk positive about the Raiola-Glenn Thomas pairing from some of your thoughts on Glenn Thomas. How do you see that working to Nebraska's benefit? You made the investment with a quarterback coach. Nebraska is going to have that dedication, which is going to be nice. And how do you see each other making that position better?
Well, I think the one thing you find out about Glenn Thomas with the Steelers is the Steelers like Glenn Thomas because he's good at working with young players. So you bring him in and you're like, you have Kenny Pickett here, who's now in his, third year as a pro. And so you're like, he's good at working with young people. And I think that's a big thing because he's going to get somebody that is further along in his development, but there are tweaks to be made. But the thing that you hear from people you talk to that have worked with him either at Baylor with Rule and Satterfield all in the mix or at Pittsburgh, he is very much it's not my way or the highway. We're in this together. We're going to work. And I think that'll be an interesting dynamic when it comes to setting up the game plan week by week. But in terms of the quarterback room, he works well with young people. He's very patient. He's very hands-on. So they're going to correct things on the field instead of going to the film room to say, hey, when you guys were out there, you missed on this route. Your eyes got caught, by the defensive back. So they clean up things on the field. I think he'll be very good. I think he's a person that he comes in at a time where you bring in 2 young quarterbacks that have to be developed still. And you got a guy that is new to the situation. The Bear basically is inheriting Kalen and Raiola, and he gets a chance to work with Harburg to say, okay, let's do this. Let's work on this. I think it's a good pairing at this stage when you bring in 2 young quarterbacks like they are.
Two-part quarterback question here. When you look at Nebraska's roster right now as it stands at the quarterback position, it's pretty thin. It's a little scary if you think about how Nebraska has, traditionally done things. You don't get a quarterback to play all the games. Like you're going to need somebody to come in and back you up. So Nebraska's sitting with Danny Kalen, true freshman, never played. And then Heinrich Harburg, who's, very, very different style of quarterback than those two. All that said, do you think Nebraska is able to add a veteran quarterback arm, more of a game manager type, sort of I can't even think of a comp. Who's the kid that transferred? He started at Michigan. He was the walk-on kid back in 2018. He didn't start, but he played a lot. What was his name? Transferred to I think he was JUCO. He came here, and then he went to 1AA school. What is his name?
From Nebraska?
Yeah. He was here for a minute, and then I'm gonna have to look that one up. I can't remember his name for now.
But to answer your question, Mark, I don't you guys think that they'll wait until after spring? Now, it's not super comfortable having 2.5 true quarterbacks and 2 guys that have never played college football, but they do have a couple of walk-ons that they like. I think they wait until after spring to say, okay, here's how we're going to assess the quarterback room. But it would be ideal to bring in that guy that just wants to, be the mentor, be the older guy in the room, come in here, realize that there's a legit chance that he can compete, be the backup guy, but he's a guy that's been around college football for a while that can lead the young guys and answer their questions away from the head coach or his position coach. But we'll see after spring. We'll see how they feel about the rest of that room that is not the 3 scholarship guys.
I was thinking of Andrew Bunch. Do you get somebody like that who probably doesn't have any sort of, realistic expectation of starting?
Yeah, that'd be an ideal type. Ideal type guy, yes.
Yeah. Thanks and Doug came in off the bench and said, Andrew Bunch, that's who we were thinking of. What happens with Harburg this year? And before you answer that, I believe he is the type of player that I don't think you just keep him. I think he's too fast, too good with the ball in his hands, too good of an athlete, too much of he's kind of a dialed in, leader type.
He's talented.
Yeah, I think he's too good to just keep on the bench. What happens with him? Do you see him having certain packages where he plays a flex role, where maybe he does, some short yardage, trying to...
I could see him being a Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
I could see him doing what they kind of intended for him to do last year, guys. Play a little tight end H-back, and if need be, play quarterback. I mean, that's how the season started. We know how the season ended. I think they will find that role for him. But you're right. He's too good of an athlete not to find a place on the field. Right. But I will tell you this, though. He will give it every go in the spring to prove people wrong. And we don't know with different tutelage and a year of experience what looks different, because things will have to look different. But we want to put him at that H-back tight end role because of his athleticism. I think he says, not so fast. Mm-hmm. I want to play. I hope they find a place for me, but I came here to play quarterback, and I'm not done yet playing quarterback. And that's great. That's great because competition in that room is ideal, like true competition. Dylan Raiola is your guy on day one, but we need people to push him so that room as a whole gets better every single day. Again, ideal situation for a new position coach to walk into.
Gary, I asked this to Brandon about 30 minutes ago. I want to get your thoughts on it as well. When you talk about that competition, there's going to be some attrition needed here through spring and into the summer before you get to fall camp most likely. Where do you see that competition through this spring? If you're forecasting spring football, which position groups do you think has the fiercest competition? What should Husker fans be keeping a lookout for in terms of competition and potential attrition?
Now, are we talking about competition to kick people off the Husker Island or competition to be a starter?
Both.
So good.
Well, I think the one thing that will happen with spring is guys will have a good understanding if they're going to play or not. And essentially last year, if you didn't play last year, and if you weren't redshirted, you have to be thinking, man, am I ever going to play? Because they played a lot of guys last year, whether they wanted to or they had to. So I think they will make decisions pretty easy. Like, you'll know you had every shot to show us what you had. It's just not going to work out. You can stay, but you're probably not going to play. I think across, like, for battle for playing time, wide receiver is a spot. Running back is a spot. The thing about spring in 2024 for Nebraska is essentially your roster is here. You're gonna start spring football, and it's like 15 practices on top of fall practice, if you get what I'm saying, because that's your roster. It's not like they are going to be waiting on 25 guys to show up in June. They're going to be waiting on just a handful of guys. So there'll be competition across the board. But I think on offense, man, wide receiver, running back, who is going to fit into the mix of a rotation at guard? And then defensive line. Man, there's some guys I think are going to play a lot of football this upcoming year. If you want to play, you better be on your best behavior here in winter conditioning and spring ball. I think we will be really, really enamored with spring this year because you got a veteran football team that doesn't have to do a lot of teaching, especially on defense. They just have to do a lot of playing. And we'll look at it and go, wow, they're getting there. And that just leads then into the fall when we start talking, man, is 7 wins, 8 wins? What can they do? They'll have a better head start going into the fall.
Gary Sharp with us, a few more minutes. Weekend edition. It's Hail Varsity. Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. And subscribe to the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Give us a like. Tell a buddy. Started the show off talking about just kind of the off-season tour from Ed Foley, Garrett McGuire. Both were at the East-Southwest game last night, checking out Jackson Carpenter. And it was cool to see them interact, not only with the family, but just different folks in the crowd, either that would come up to them or they would go out and shake hands. And, it's really necessary, but they totally, Sharpie, thrive in their role.
Oh.
In Omaha, in Fairbury, you pick a spot. They are finding diners. They are finding spots to go hit. They're paying tribute to Elijah Herbel and the nacho cheese on the hot dog.
Disgusting.
That's what I say, but I've not tried it. And touch on just you're locked in Omaha, brother, and that is such a fertile area, specifically with all the training that goes on up there with Steve and in the Warren Academy, and just how much it's exploded on a national scene.
All you have to do is look at all the major college programs that rolled through Omaha this past week. USC, Stanford, Michigan, Notre Dame. I mean, you go on and on and on. The talent in Omaha and the rest of the state is drawing a lot of people. But wouldn't you guys like to just trade spots right now this morning with Ed Foley? Like Mark or Elijah, you go, you know what? I'll be Ed Foley. Ed Foley can come on, 6 days out of the week and do radio. Because Ed Foley might have one of the best jobs in Nebraska football. He is, there's only 2 coaches that speak to the entire team every day. That's the head coach and the special teams guy. So there's a lot of power there in the special teams world. And I know people have been saying, hey, you guys talk about additions this year. What are they going to do at punter? That's probably closer to spring. But then you're Ed Foley, so you get to address the team every day. You work with more guys than any of the other position coaches. You get to tour the state of Nebraska eating at all the 3-star diners. You get to tweet out pictures. You have this lovable personality. You love to talk to people. Everybody likes you, but you don't have the pressure of when Nebraska has to close on an in-state guy, you're not the guy. They take White, they take Brule, they take Satterfield, they take whoever. They go and close the deal, and you're like, hey, man, I just put out the breadcrumbs. I got a great life. I think Ed Foley has a great job at Nebraska.
I mean, really, the only pressure is whenever you go up by 2 scores in a football game, you have to ask yourself whether or not you're going to kick an onside. That's about it. That's about it.
Yeah, in Ireland.
Yeah.
It's Irish law. You have to do it.
I mean, there. You know what? It's just a nice little cycle here where there's a lot of talent in the state, and I think what this staff has done, and they're even with some changes in the recruiting office, they are really well organized. The schedule of where the coaches are going, they don't have to worry about it. They know what's going to be in their inbox. They know where they're going. There's no like surprises if Philip Simpson is in Florida and the car is not there or, whatever. So they do a really good job of organizing all of that. And I think in-state that's important because when you're organized, you see guys earlier. And that's the big thing with Nebraska kids, and I found out with Omaha kids. They like to be recognized early, not Johnny-come-lately. And make an evaluation, start a relationship. Maybe it results in a scholarship. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe I end up there. Maybe I don't. But I think the fact that Nebraska is ahead of the game in evaluating prospects and listening to people around the state that know football, that they trust, that say, hey, you got to go check out this wide receiver at Platteview. He's about to blow up. Nebraska gets in there early, and look what happens next. Platteview, which has sent 2 football players to Nebraska since 1990, all of a sudden you have all these major colleges are there. So they're very organized, and so that helps when Ed Foley can tour the state. He knows where he's going to eat. He knows what school he's going to, and we're all like, oh, that's Ed. We like Ed. Every staff needs an Ed Foley.
Yeah. Let's look into a couple questions that we have for next year's roster. So outside of Raiola, give me one offensive player, one defensive player incoming, freshman. So from the recruiting class, one offensive, one defensive player outside Raiola that figures into the mix immediately is an impact player and in the rotation by the end of the year.
By the end of the year?
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying day one, but by the end of the year, who figures into the mix out of the recruiting class? I got a couple, and I just was curious what you think.
Ja'Cory Barney is a huge get for Nebraska.
Okay. The wide receiver?
Yes.
And
also,
in what way? What's his style? What do you like about him?
He's going to be a little slot guy.
Yep.
But he's got speed to burn. I mean, they have their track team that they assembled a track team a year before they had a track to run on and somebody to shoot the starter's gun. Mm-hmm. Now they have a track to run on, and they got Raiola standing there shooting the starter's gun. So they're in a good spot. I like Barney a lot. He's going to be in my Super Six. A guy not to overlook, and I if you're saying end of the year, maybe in the mix, Keelan Smith, Neil Smith's son. Boy, there's a lot to like about him with his size. But can I give you 2 on offense?
Yeah.
And it might be a little bit tougher for him because they got 22 scholarship offensive linemen. But look out for Gibson Pyle. I think Gibson Pyle will work his way through the offensive line depth chart where we're going to see him in late October and November possibly having some snaps. Maybe not starting, but having some snaps. On defense.
Is he interior or outside?
He is a interior guy. No, he's an outside guy.
Outside guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's 6'4", 275.
Okay. Klein, Texas. Yep. Sticking him up. Okay.
And so, because Brooks gets a lot of attention in the recruiting class, Pyle had a great senior year. And he's got great film if everything that you're looking for. On defense, if they get Wilhite, he would be the guy. If they get Keona Wilhite.
What about Buford? What little Buford?
He's going to be a player. But you remember, they're stacked in that room.
Yeah.
What do you mean about get Wilhite? Can you tell me more about that? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
If he
there.
commits to Nebraska,
he's the 4-star that was going to Washington.
Okay, and he's still out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So and it was kind of interesting who Nebraska sent for his home visit. It was Tony White. So the coordinators don't recruit a lot. Sometimes they walk in and they're the hammer. But they're not everywhere all over the country. So it's kind of special when they go to recruit. I have a guy like Tony White show up in my house to say, hey, this is where we see you as a pass rushing guy. You were really good in high school. You can be a fit here. I know you liked your official visit. I know you got Michigan State breathing down your neck. You know what? Nebraska's the place for you. But I think it's twofold. White goes in as the guy that, hey, if you're playing for us, I'm coordinating that defense, and I can explain the Jack and the Will of what you might play, but also Tony White's going to be a head coach someday. That's great experience as a guy to go in and close the deal, because coordinators aren't really expected to do that. And White doesn't do an abundance of recruiting. He does recruit, but not, like the other position coaches. It's like, hey, here's something you're going to have to get used to when you're a head coach is go into a big time recruit that you want to win a battle. And that's, White going in to visit Will Hite. So we'll see. I have no read on what he's going to do. I think he's kind of kept it close to the vest, but Nebraska can't have enough pass rushers. I don't care if they've already got some on the roster. They need to start assembling and just building a deep pool and then add Christian Jones from Westside in the class of 25.
Yeah, I think one other question I have about is for Nebraska next year, they're loaded at this position at defensive back, right, between safety and corner. I think you can take to the bank, and you lose Quentin Newsome. So you can take to the bank Gifford. I think you could take to the bank Hartzog. You could probably take
Tommy Hill,
Singleton,
and then and Singleton. Who's that fifth?
And I'll give you two other guys. I think Bly Hill's going to find a way on the field, and then Dwight Boodle.
So, and there's also Buford, right? Maybe not a lot to be concerned about. Do you think I would like to see them move Hartzog to one of the safety spots? I think that's more of his natural position with the way he hits.
He's physical. He tackles well.
And with the way he, I just don't know if he could stick with top end wide receivers consistently.
Yeah, I don't care where he plays. He has to be better in crunch time. Consistently better, because he has all the makings of being a top-level defensive back, whether it be a cornerback, safety. But there were times in crunch time this year he didn't make plays. He was just too up and down. So he's better than that.
Yeah. And by the way, for an incoming guy, give me Larry Tarver Jr., I believe is his name, the kid out of Miami, one of the late additions to Nebraska's 2024 class, because he's a 10-600 guy, because he screams off the edge. The one thing I really appreciate about Tony White and Matt Rule is, like, if you have a skill set that's ready to go, they'll bring in. I mean, who was that defensive end that came out of nowhere? James Williams or something like that? Like some guy that was like a walk-on that no one ever heard of, and then he's getting sacks in Big Ten play out of nowhere. I could see Tarver Jr. figuring into the mix in some capacity this year.
One more name.
They like Rex Guthrie a lot from Littleton, Colorado.
One more name. I don't want to get swept into the rug. Ethan Nation. I think Ethan Nation's a dude. Yeah. He needed a little seasoning. I think he can work his way into some playing time this year.
Sharpie, gonna wind it down and get your take. What do you believe about your Kansas City Chiefs with Andy Reid, with the matchup tomorrow, and the future of KC?
Unbiased, of course.
Yeah, if they win tomorrow, there will be a thing, never bet against Mahomes in the playoffs. I think it'd be tough tomorrow. Now they're kind of playing a little house money. Tooney not being there hurts a little bit, because he's going to have to see a lot of different fronts, and they'll pick on him early. I don't know. Andy Reid and Mahomes together, you don't want to bet against them. But, boy, Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken are all on the same page, and Baltimore's scary. That offense is scary, what Jackson does in the play-action game, and Kansas City hasn't been great in play-action defense. And then Baltimore's defense is ferocious. It's not like the Ray Lewis time when they won the Super Bowl, but, man, they gang tackle. So, like, Pacheco's going to have to be good. There's going to have to be a lot of things going to Kansas City's way, but I never doubt KC with Mahomes. I think it's close, but I think the Ravens are just a better up-and-down team. But, man, I'm ready for it. If Kansas City wins that game, I'm ready for everybody to just be upset at America's team.
Love that.
But how about, hey, could we start the year and finish the year with the same game? Lions-Chiefs.
Detroit, yeah.
Wait, really fast. Did you just call the Chiefs America's team?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on from that.
They've got Jason Kelce shirtless. They've got Taylor Swift. They got 50 million people are watching them. They are winning championships. They become a villain. How are they not America's team?
Did you see the thing that's going on social media that 46 of the 50 states were rooting for the Ravens in this one?
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
That's America. That's a lot of America. Is I think Elijah's point.
We're divided. I mean, I
guess the Cowboys are America's team, and everyone loves to hate the Cowboys. No, they're not.
So the Chiefs are the new America's team.
Okay.
It's okay to say that out loud.
No.
You could say that about the Cowboys, and it was not a term of affection.
If anyone is America's team right now, it's the Lions.
Yeah.
Well, they're lovable, so I want them to make the Super Bowl.
By the way, is Pacheco? Is he up for contract? Is he a free agent coming up? Is he locked up?
Hey, you guys want to have a kick in the gut when it comes to Nebraska running backs, where we used to be I back you? Rutgers will have 2 running backs playing in this game, Edwards and Pacheco.
Oh, jeez.
Now Pacheco's only
and they didn't light up the Big Ten, but they were good. They were serviceable.
No. Yeah.
I don't like the Chiefs. I don't dislike them either. I'm just sort of ambivalent about the NFL. I just like to watch it, right? Don't really have a team. Pacheco is my favorite NFL running back. And he's my favorite. Yeah, exactly. I just wear the NFL hat. Go sports. But Pacheco is my favorite NFL running back in 5-10 years. That dude there's nobody on the planet that runs as hard as him. It's crazy. It is absolutely ridiculous. And he's starting to rub off. On the running backs behind him. I mean, wow, what an impressive guy.
Hey, he runs like the treadmill is going too fast.
Yeah, he really does. It's something.
And
by the way,
one thing about Pacheco,
he had a house call against Nebraska on a kick return a few years ago.
And one thing about Pacheco, they did BTN did a story on him, really, really just incredible story where back in high school, both of his siblings, his sister and his brother, were both killed while he was in high school. And he kind of plays for them. It's a really incredible story. I encourage you to check it out. That's one thing I'll say. Not a Chiefs guy, but hearing that story a little earlier this year made me root for Pacheco. BTN did a story on it back whenever he was playing at Rutgers, just about the motivation that he has playing on the field, playing for his sister and his brother who were both killed. So really incredible story.
Well, it actually makes sense because he looks like he's playing. I mean, he's not just playing the position. Yeah, you're just sort of like, what?
He runs
what
with
is
some anger.
Yeah, what is running this guy?
Hey, so we're down to one. Randy Gregory is the lone hope for a Husker to be in the Super Bowl.
Well, no. Now I say it's actually 2 of my favorite guys, like Pacheco and then Debo. Come on now.
Yeah,
Debo's awesome.
Yeah, they need him tomorrow to be healthy.
And then McCaffrey on the San Francisco's loaded too. My goodness. It's a good group. This is a good Final Four. This is a really good Final Four.
The NFL has got
really good.
Okay. The NFL is too big to fail. It delivers, and tomorrow should be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be a pain in the butt if the Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl because y'all are going to hate it. Y'all are going to hate it.
I'm not going to join that Saturday morning show.
Of the most unlikely year for Kansas City to make a run as a 3 seed and win twice on the road, and they do it with an opposite identity of what they've done in the past. They're known for their defense this year. I mean, he's only 28, guys.
Hey, let's real quick. We were going to get you out of there on this, but you know how this thing rolls. I mean, come on.
Sharpie's going to have internet problems in 3, 2, 1.
But Nebraska baseball holds its press conference yesterday. They started practice. Like, look
3 weeks. 3 weeks from now, we'll be talking about the first game.
That is unbelievable. So that is happening. Nebraska baseball is back. Drew Christo is one of the 2 guys that they trot out. Drew Christo of Elkhorn fame. Was he going to go pro or was he going to go to Nebraska? I mean, he was that level of talent. He's 6'5", he's 230. He is literally built like Roger Clemens. Not saying he is Roger Clemens. He's literally built like him, though. And they trot him out as one of the 2 guys. And you wouldn't say that his past performance would justify that. But now he's working with a Rob Childress, who is known for kind of keeping it simple and kind of being a pitcher whisperer of sorts. What do we expect out of Drew Christo under Childress? And is the fact that they trotted him out as one of the 2 players telling for what we can expect for him this year?
I think that's a good read. So, Rob, you must throw strikes to pitch for Rob. If you don't throw strikes, you're not pitching. You're sitting next to him in the dugout. So, and Drew gave you the glimpses more last year than he did as a freshman that what he threw at Elkhorn, fastball, his array of pitches is overpowering. He can do that, but he had trouble finding the strike zone. Now he's finally got a pitching coach that I think is going to, has worked really in depth with him and studied him and now can be more on hand. Rob's watched him from afar for the last couple of years. Now he's right there with him. I think you're going to see a jump with Drew, but all those pitchers, they don't throw strikes. They don't throw strikes early in the count. Then you're not a friend of Rob Childress. And I also think I think there's what I've heard is from the fall is there's a little bit more break on the curveball. So just a little extra tutelage, I think, will benefit Drew Christo. But that's a good read that they would roll out a guy that pitched, 16 innings last year? Started one game, only pitched, I think, 11 games.
And he was so – and God, when he came in, he had so much, nervous energy. You know what I'm saying? He did not look like a calm, composed dude on the mound. He looked like he had his heart rate was at 180, and he's just dude, Drew, settle down, man.
He was dominant in high school. I watched him pitch a lot. And, his dad's an athlete, so there's great DNA. And Drew is multi-sport guy. He shows up in Nebraska. That fall ball before his freshman year, he got lit up like a monkey. Yeah. They were doing the red-white, and guys were hitting balls off of Pinnacle Bank Arena, and all of a sudden he's on the mound going, whoa. It was a slow adjustment. I think we saw times last year where he adjusted, but Nebraska has to have all hands on deck. I don't think there's a superstar on this team, but I think they've assembled a roster that complements each other pretty well.
Is it going to be that scrappy bunch? That's how Will played. Will Bolt prefers that style. Last year, I think you at the top of your lineup, you had, obviously you had 2 first, second round draft picks. Guys are just super talented hitters. Do you think they're going to go a little bit more small ball, a little more scrappy, a little more kind of the way Bolt wants to play? He's clean off of that Van Horn tree. It didn't seem like they could play like that since he's been here.
No, and I think you look at them this upcoming year, they'll probably have more of the Will Bolt identity, because they had a lot of spots that were open in the fall, so they still have some spots open. So I think the competitiveness will benefit this team as well. But I think this is where this team will get themselves to the NCAA tournament, is they have a deep pitching staff. Now, they're going to have to figure out who's going to be at the top of that pitching staff on the Fridays, the Saturdays, and what you do on Sunday. But I like their array of arms. Again, the roster construction, when Mike Sirianni joined the program, they said, okay, we got to act quickly here to fill some holes on the 24. They did, and they brought some pieces in of guys that have thrown a lot of college baseball. But they've recruited themselves and constructed the roster into options. Now they got to go out and prove it. And I think Rob has taken it upon himself is, you know what? That's my my chore this year, is to get guys to throw strikes and to develop a 4th and 5th starter if need be.
We welcome Gertie the German Shepherd to the show.
Made an appearance. Yeah.
Hey, but the weather's warming up. We can all go golfing on Groundhog's Day. It's going to be 60 degrees.
Do it. Sharpie, where do you want to go, man?
Milts.
Hey.
Is that still a thing?
Hey, well, Thursday will be a big day. We'll golf, and then we'll go watch Nebraska-Wisconsin basketball.
Is Milt still open?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
despite all the attempts to buy the land, which is across the street from the new casino in Omaha, they have hung in there.
Schmidt, Elijah, you guys know about Milts?
No, tell me.
Little par 3 where they just basically have probably 1 or 2 dudes mowing it occasionally. That's it.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
they got a driving range there as well. It's across the street from Horseman's Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Best golf course in America.
Oh, it's cheap. It's awesome. The guy that runs the shack is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Milts.
Done.
It's probably $4 or something.
And it's in a prime real estate spot, and they won't sell. God bless.
I'd be surprised if they have a website. I'm going to look it up.
Sharpie will let you get out, brother. It's fun to.
Did you guys see Landman Golf Club started making the rounds nationally, and they already sold out their tee times for 2024?
You can talk to Schmidt. He'll get you on there. He knows people.
That'd be nice.
We are shopping since allegedly Junior's retired from baseball to be able to golf now this summer. I'm not going to take
9 holes is $12.
Oh, that's
boom.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Second 9 for $6. I mean, why not?
You can't beat that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sharpie, we'll get the clubs dusted off. Kraynak will get you acclimated. Elijah will keep the Red Bull and vodkas going so the putting works.
And enjoy Caitlin Clark, who always tries to hang 50 on Nebraska.
Yes.
Yeah. But here in a little bit, huge game for Nebraska basketball.
Yes.
Taking the points.
I bow out of this because I have no idea which Nebraska team shows up on the road.
You and me.
Yeah. That's life it is right now. But it's tough to win on the road across all of college basketball. But Nebraska has to find one or two of those along the way. And especially today, because Maryland's win the other night, they've gone into a quad 3. So it would be.
They won in Illinois, too, not long ago.
Yeah, they're a good team. If Nebraska is who we think they are, shouldn't they go in there and this game comes down to the final few possessions?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they can't unravel, that's for sure. They can't go up and unravel. Like if they've shown half of their road wins, they've been up, and the other half they've battled back to take a lead and not maintained it. So can they kind of take that mentality from PBA, playmaking, decision-making, with them to the nation's capital?
Yep. Well, we'll find out. But then the game on Thursday against Wisconsin is huge because Wisconsin is, man, Greg Gard might be in the running for National Coach of the Year, what they've done.
They're a 2 seed. They can knock on that 1 seed door.
Well, and you also have to remember, you lost to them earlier in the year. Remember the last time Chucky Hepburn was at PBA. Nebraska rallied, Chucky got booed, and Nebraska won.
Big comeback.
Yep.
Well, Gary, we'll let you get back to your 5th rewatch of the Sydney Sweeney Hot Ones, so enjoy that.
I'm
Lay this
Googling
out.
right now.
I saw a reel, or I should say I saw a posting by our friends at the Redcast. Tell me, what do I need to watch this later?
Do you not know Sydney Sweeney?
His name's a little bit familiar.
She's in a couple of big shows. Then she had the Anyone But You rom-com just come out. Anyway, she's in Hot Ones where they eat the hot wings with even hot questions. Yeah, it's solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good thing that Google works at Kraynak's house.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Sharpie's like out. All right. Find the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Follow along at Herbal Essence at Schmidt _radio. And Mark Kraynak. Check out his LinkedIn. I guess you're on that.
Sure.
Email
Mark,
to be your business's MVP.
Are we?
Let's
LinkedIn,
just talk
Mark?
about. Yeah, I don't know. I think we are, Elijah. I think we are. I was impressed the fact that you had a profile.
Oh, I have a couple of invites.
Yeah. So, by the way, we should put up Dion's last comment. This is perfect. It's a great way to close.
Thanks,
great way
guys.
to close.
Rick?
No. Dion, up a little bit. You see that one? Can you put it up there? I don't know how to put it up there.
Oh, Mark Kraynak, 500 plus connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm telling you, your business is MVP. Look, seriously, look at it. The Dion's last comment. I think we should end on that note. If Craig takes his bike back from Devo,
that's my bike, punk.
Then I wouldn't trip. He said he wanted me to get my bike back. That's a Friday reference.
Yep,
Mr. Elijah.
My grandma gave me that chain.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
All right,
Good
we'll
old
be
Craig.
back next time and talk to you Monday at 4, and next weekend we'll lock in. Guys, take care. Thanks again.
All right, y'all.